$1.84 billion. Memorize that number. That's how much the U.S. Navy wasted modernizing 4 cruisers that never deployed. 4 ships, $1.84 billion. Thrown away. And yet right now, at this exact moment, there's a 33-year-old cruiser steaming through the Red Sea, the USS Gettysburg, a ship Congress wanted dead, a ship the Navy tried to retire 3 times, a ship that critics called obsolete, antiquated, a relic of the Cold War. This is the paradox. The Navy is hemorrhaging money trying to replace these cruisers. But when the Houthis started raining ballistic missiles on carrier strike groups in December 2024, the Navy didn't send its shiny new destroyers. They sent Gettysburg, a ship built when Ronald Reagan was president. Look at what happened December 22, 2024, Red Sea. The USS Harry S. Truman is launching strikes into Yemen, Houthi missiles incoming. And the only ship standing between a $12 billion aircraft carrier and a supersonic anti-ship ballistic missile is a 9800-ton cruiser that was supposed to be scrapped. The math you're about to see will change how you think about naval warfare. The enemy isn't Iran. The enemy is geometry. Here's what civilians see. An aging fleet of cruisers, 27 ships built between 1983 and 1994. The Navy wants them gone. Congress keeps blocking retirement. Looks like political dysfunction, right? Here's what naval strategists see. A capability gap the size of the Persian Gulf. Let me show you the numbers. A Ticonderoga-class cruiser carries 122 vertical launch system cells. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, the ship that's supposed to replace these cruisers, carries 96 cells. But wait, you're thinking, 26 missiles isn't that much of a difference? Wrong. Let's do the math. In January 2025, the Navy fired more than 200 missiles defending against Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. That's in 2 months. The USS Gettysburg alone was engaging multiple targets per day. Standard Missile 2s at $2.1 million each, SM-6s at $3.9 million, SM-3S, the ballistic missile interceptors, at $27.9 million per shot. Now here's the constraint that changes everything. You can't reload these missiles at sea. Not yet. When you empty those launch cells, you pull into port. Bahrain, Djibouti, wherever, and you're out of the fight for days. This is where the 26 missile gap becomes catastrophic. A destroyer with 96 cells might need to reload after 3 major engagements. A cruiser with 122 cells gives you 4, maybe 5 engagements before your Winchester, military speak for out of ammunition. So here's the question you need to ask. When you've got one carrier strike group covering 2 million square miles of ocean, and the Houthis are launching swarm attacks with 17 drones plus ballistic missiles in a single wave, how many times can you afford to pull your air defense commander out of the fight? Because that's what a cruiser is. Look at the Gettysburg's role in the Red Sea. She wasn't just another ship. She was designated Whiskey, the air defense commander for the entire strike group. That means every FA-18 flying combat air patrol, every destroyer in the formation, every electronic warfare mission. It all flows through Gettysburg's Combat Information Center. The dimensions matter here. A Ticonderoga-class cruiser is 567 feet long, 55 feet wide, displaces 9,800 tons fully loaded. She's got 2 separate Aegis SPY, 1 radar arrays, 1 forward, 1 aft, giving 360-degree coverage out to 200 miles. That's not just firepower. That's command and control infrastructure. And here's the brutal economics. It cost $2.2 billion to build a new Flight 3 Arleigh Burke destroyer with 96 cells. The Navy just spent $3.7 billion trying to modernize 7 cruisers and only got 3 of them operational. This is the paradox of naval power. Sometimes the most expensive option is the cheap one we already have, and sometimes obsolete just means we haven't invented anything better yet. Go back to 1978. The Cold War is peak paranoia. The Soviet Navy is launching Kirov-class battlecruisers with enough firepower to sink carrier strike groups. The U.S. Navy needs a counter, fast. The answer was supposed to be the strike cruiser. Nuclear-powered, 17,200 tons. Armed with the revolutionary new Aegis combat system, a radar and computer network that could track 128 targets simultaneously and engage 18 at once. This thing was going to be the apex predator of the ocean, but it had one problem: the price tag. Double the cost of mounting Aegis on a conventional destroyer hull. Congress took one look and said no. So the Navy made a trade. They took the Spruance-class destroyer hull, 6,900 tons, designed for anti-submarine warfare, and bolted the Aegis system onto it. Added flagship capabilities, vertical launch systems, made it a cruiser by designation, not by size. Called it Ticonderoga-class. It was the ultimate compromise. Not as capable as the strike cruiser, not as cheap as a basic destroyer, but good enough to fill the gap. For 2 decades, it worked perfectly. Ticonderogas escorted carriers through the Gulf War, launched Tomahawks into Iraq, patrolled the Pacific. They were the Swiss Army knife of naval warfare: anti-air, anti-surface, anti-submarine, land attack, all in one hull. Then 2011 happened. Budget Control Act. The defense budget got slashed. The Navy started looking at its least efficient platforms. And there sat 27 Ticonderoga-class cruisers, each one requiring 360 sailors to operate, each one getting more expensive to maintain as they aged past 30 years. The math looked terrible. Decommission them all. Replace them with cheaper, more modern destroyers. Build the next generation of air defense ships. This is where we got arrogant. We assumed the future would be permissive. Assumed we'd have time to build replacements. Assumed no peer adversary would challenge us at sea before 2030. We chose efficiency over capability. We traded deep magazines for budget savings. We threw away the institutional knowledge of operating dedicated air warfare platforms. And then the Houthis turned the Red Sea into a shooting gallery. And suddenly those obsolete cruisers looked pretty damn essential. The Navy had an answer. But first, they had to face the enemy's math. While we were planning retirement ceremonies, the Houthis were studying our geometry. Here's what they learned. American carrier strike groups have one critical vulnerability. It's not stealth, it's not firepower. It's magazine depth, how many shots you can take before you're defenseless. Watch the sequence from December 2024. The USS Harry S. Truman enters the Red Sea on the 14th. By the 22nd, 8 days later, the Houthis are launching coordinated attacks, not random potshots, coordinated attacks. December 22nd, 0200 hours, Houthi forces launch a swarm, 17 drones, 8 cruise missiles, 3 anti-ship ballistic missiles, all heading for the Truman strike group. Do the math with me. The USS Gettysburg has 122 launch cells. Figure 80 of those are loaded with SM-2 and SM-6 air defense missiles. That's the magazine. Against 28 incoming threats, Gettysburg starts burning through missiles. But here's where it gets interesting. The Houthis aren't trying to sink the carrier, they're trying to empty the magazines. Because they've done the arithmetic. They know exactly what we know. Ships can't reload at sea. The pattern repeated for 5 months. January 2025, the Navy reported engaging nearly 400 attack drones and missiles. That's 400 intercepts. And remember, we fired more than 200 defensive missiles. That means each missile had to be perfect. No second shots. No margin for error. Now calculate the kill box. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait is 18 miles wide at its narrowest point. Any ship transiting between the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden has to pass through that choke point. The Houthis have Iranian-supplied anti-ship ballistic missiles with a range of 200-plus miles. Do the subtraction. A carrier strike group, moving at 20 knots through the strait, is in the Houthi engagement zone for 10 hours minimum. 10 hours of continuous threat. 10 hours where your air defense commander has to be 100% effective. This is the void. Between the time a cruiser leaves the Red Sea with empty magazines and returns after reloading, you've got a capability gap. During that gap, you're down 122 launch cells. You're down your primary air defense commander. You're down the platform with the most sophisticated combat management system in the fleet. This is where critics get it wrong. They ask, why not just use more destroyers? The Navy has an answer, and it's pure physics. A destroyer can defend itself. A cruiser can defend the strike group. That's not doctrine, that's radar geometry. The SPY-1 radar arrays on a Ticonderoga are larger, more powerful, positioned higher above the waterline than destroyer radars. They can see farther, track more targets, manage more complexity. When the USS Gettysburg shot down that FA-18 on December 22nd, the friendly fire incident, she was simultaneously tracking dozens of actual hostile targets. The Combat Information Center was managing surface-to-air missiles, coordinating with E-2 Hawkeyes, deconflicting airspace with strike fighters. The load was so intense that trained sailors made a catastrophic error, but the alternative, not having that capability at all, was worse. Enter the solution, not a new ship, a new method. October 2024, USS Chosin, another Ticonderoga-class cruiser, conducts the first successful test of TRAM, Transferable Reload at Sea method. This is not a drill. This is not a concept. This is a revolution in naval logistics. Look at what they accomplished. The cruiser pulls alongside a replenishment ship, not pierside, not in calm water, at sea. In the Pacific, the supply ship has missile canisters, each one containing a standard missile, sealed, ready to load. A crane system transfers these canisters, each weighing 3,000 pounds, from the supply ship to the cruiser's deck. Sailors then maneuver them to the vertical launch hatches. Open the cell, lower the canister, lock it in, close the hatch. The entire sequence takes 45 minutes per missile. Do the math. To reload 32 cells, the number you'd typically expend in a major engagement, takes 24 hours of continuous operations. This is not easy. This is engineering at the edge of physics. Think about the geometry. You've got two ships, each displacing 10,000 plus tons, maintaining station 120 feet apart. The ocean is not flat. There's pitch, fore and aft motion, roll side to side, yaw rotation, all three axes moving independently. And you're threading a 3,000-pound missile canister on a cable between those two moving platforms, in 20-foot seas, at night, while maintaining enough speed to keep steerage, usually 5-8 knots. The tolerance is measured in inches. If the canister swings and hits the ship's superstructure, you've got a live missile potentially exploding on deck. If it drops, you've lost $2.1 million and created a navigational hazard. If the ships drift too close, you risk collision. Too far, the crane can't reach. This is where the Navy's 240 years of seamanship shows through. The crane operators aren't using GPS. They're using Mark I eyeball, visual judgment, combined with feel. The deck crews are coordinating with hand signals because radio chatter would be chaos. The bridge teams on both ships are making constant micro-adjustments. 5 degrees starboard, increased to 6 knots, steady as she goes. Look at the numbers. Before TRAM, reloading meant pier time, minimum 4 days in port. Transit time to Bahrain from the Red Sea, 30 hours each way, plus 48 hours actually reloading missiles in port. Total, 6 days out of the fight. With TRAM, it's 24 hours alongside a supply ship. No port call, no transit. The strike group never leaves the operational area. For a carrier strike group commander, this changes the calculus entirely. You can be more aggressive with your magazine. Instead of conserving missiles for the worst-case scenario, you can engage threats earlier, at longer range, with higher probability of kill. The physics of the standard missile, 6 makes this critical. Maximum range, 250 nautical miles. But it's not just a missile, it's a flying radar platform. After launch, the SM-6 uses its own active radar seeker to guide to the target. The cruiser can fire, then immediately engage the next threat. Velocity at impact, Mach 3.5. That's 2,685 miles per hour. The kinetic energy alone, mass times velocity squared, is enough to destroy an incoming missile even without the warhead detonating. We're talking about 150 pounds of missile traveling at 3.5 times the speed of sound, hitting a 1,000-pound cruise missile. The explosive is almost redundant. This is molecular-level destruction. The impact vaporizes metal. The shockwave propagates through the target's structure at supersonic speeds. The missile doesn't just explode, it disintegrates. This is the engineering miracle, not the ships. The logistics that keep them loaded. Watch the sequence. This is what actually happened December 2024. Red Sea. USS Harry S. Truman Strike Group. 35 hours. The E-2D Advanced Hawkeye, the Navy's airborne early warning aircraft, picks up radar contacts launching from Yemen, multiple tracks. Computers classify them. Cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, one-way attack drones, all heading toward the strike group. The Hawkeye transmits data via Link 16 to every ship in the formation. USS Gettysburg receives the picture. 28 hostile tracks. Range 180 miles. Time to impact 12 minutes. Gettysburg's Combat Information Center, they call it Combat, goes to General Quarters. Every sailor to their battle station. The Aegis system is already tracking the threats. The 4SPY, one-phased array radar faces, are painting everything within 200 miles. Three-dimensional picture. Altitude, speed, vector. 21:37 hours. The tactical action officer makes the call. Engage with SM-2 and SM-6. The fire controlman enters the firing solution. The system selects which launch cells to use. Targeting algorithms calculate intercept geometry for each threat. 21:30, 8 hours, first missile away. The vertical launch cell hatch blows open. The missile erupts from the deck on a column of fire and smoke. 1 second later, the next missile launches. Then another. Every 2 seconds, another launch. The geometry is perfect. Each SM-6 is programmed with an intercept point. The missile climbs to 65,000 feet, twice the altitude of commercial aircraft. Deploys control surfaces, the active radar seeker goes hot. 21:42 hours, first intercept, 120 miles from the strike group. An SM-6 closes with a Houthi cruise missile at a combined velocity of Mach 6. Impact. The cruise missile's fuel load detonates. Fireball visible for 50 miles. Meanwhile, the ballistic threats are different geometry. They're coming down from space at Mach 5+. For these, Gettysburg launches SM-3 interceptors. Different trajectory. These missiles climb straight up to 100+ miles altitude. The edge of space. 21:45 hours. The SM-3 releases its kinetic warhead. This isn't explosive. It's a 40-pound projectile with an infrared seeker. Closing speed, Mach 10. That's 7,600 miles per hour. Relative. When it hits the Houthi ballistic missile, both objects cease to exist in any meaningful form. Vaporized. The entire engagement lasts 18 minutes, 28 threats, 26 intercepts. 2 missiles got through the outer defense layer, defeated by close-in weapon systems and electronic warfare. But here's what the investigation later revealed. During this engagement, 4 FA-18F Super Hornets were returning to the carrier after striking Houthi targets in Yemen. They're in the same airspace as the hostile missiles. The Aegis system is tracking everything, friendlies and hostiles. 21:47 hours. Combat makes a catastrophic error. 2 of the Super Hornets are misidentified as hostile. Gettysburg's system automatically recommends engagement. The tactical action officer, exhausted, stressed, managing 40+ tracks simultaneously, approves. 2 SM-2 missiles launch at American jets. The first missile hits. The FA-18 explodes. Both pilots eject. Rescued 30 minutes later. The second missile, the computer aborts the shot 10 seconds before impact. A sailor in combat recognized the error, sent the destruct command. That missile self-detonated 100 feet from the second FA-18. Here's the trade-off the Navy won't say publicly. The same aggressive engagement posture that saved the carrier strike group from 26 hostile missiles nearly killed 2 more American pilots. But look at the alternative. If Gettysburg had been passive, conservative, waiting for positive hostile ID on every track, some of those 28 Houthi weapons would have reached the carrier. Maybe they hit, maybe they don't. But the risk calculus changes everything. This is the discipline of power. You train sailors to be aggressive, to engage first, to protect the strike group at all costs. And sometimes, very rarely, that aggression misfires. Let's talk about the cost nobody wants to acknowledge. The Navy spent $3.7 billion on the cruiser modernization program. 7 ships entered the program. Only 3 completed it. Gettysburg, Chosin, Cape St. George. 4 ships, Vicksburg, Cowpens, Antietam, Leyte Gulf, were decommissioned after partial modernization. $1.84 billion wasted on ships that never deployed after their upgrades. To the accountants, this looks like failure, catastrophic program mismanagement. And they're not wrong. The GAO documented 9,000 contract changes, poor quality control, ships that gained 0 additional service life despite the overhauls. But this is not bad management. This is the discipline of power. Here's what they got for $3.7 billion. 3 cruisers with another decade of operational life. That's 10 additional years of 122-cell magazine depth. 10 years of dedicated air warfare command platforms. 10 years where the Navy doesn't have to choose between protecting carriers and protecting budget. Do the math differently. A new Flight 3 Arleigh Burke destroyer costs $2.2 billion, has 96 cells. To replace the firepower of 3 modernized cruisers, you'd need at least 4 destroyers. That's $8.8 billion for the same capability. Suddenly, $3.7 billion looks cheap, even with 4 ships wasted, even with all the delays and cost overruns. This is the brutal reality of maintaining naval power. The efficient choice, retire old ships, wait for new ones, creates gaps. And gaps kill sailors. The USS Gettysburg shot down that FA-18 because the crew was operating under combat stress that no training could fully replicate. 5 months of continuous operations in the Red Sea, ballistic missiles, swarm drone attacks, and operational tempo not seen since World War II. The investigation found limited training opportunities and lack of forceful backup in the Combat Information Center. Translation: we asked 19-year-old fire controlmen to make life-or-death decisions every 90 seconds for 5 months straight, and eventually they broke. But here's what the investigation won't say. Those same overtrained, overstressed, exhausted sailors saved a $12 billion aircraft carrier and 5,000 crew members by shooting down 26 hostile missiles in 18 minutes. The trade-off is molecular. The stress of continuous combat operations literally damages the human brain. Cortisol levels spike, decision-making degrades, reaction time slows. This isn't weakness, this is neuroscience. And yet, we keep these ships deployed because the alternative is worse. Pull them out, you create a gap in air defense coverage. That gap might last days, weeks if you're rotating ships for maintenance. During those gaps, carriers are vulnerable. And American presidents don't ask whether the cruiser is old or the crew is tired. They ask, can you project power in the Red Sea? Yes or no? This is why the Navy keeps obsolete cruisers in the fight, because sometimes the weapon you have is better than the weapon you wish you had. So how did we keep a carrier strike group operational in the most dangerous maritime environment since 1945? Physics, mathematics, and a 33-year-old cruiser the Navy tried to retire. The USS Gettysburg is scheduled to remain in service until 2029. That's 46 years of operational life from a ship designed to last 30. She'll outlive the Cold War she was built to fight. She'll outlive the strike cruiser program that was supposed to replace her. She might outlive the first Flight 3 destroyers that are supposed to replace her, because here's what the budget analysts never understand. Naval dominance isn't about having the newest technology. It's about having the right capability at the right time in the right place. Those 122 vertical launch cells aren't just missiles. They're optionality. They're the ability to engage 122 different threats without reloading. They're insurance against the swarm attack you didn't predict, the ballistic missile you didn't see coming, the crisis that erupts 3 days after you empty your magazines. And the sailors who operate these ships, they're 19-year-old kids from Kansas and Texas and California, making split-second decisions that determine whether a $12 billion carrier goes home intact. They're the fire controlmen third class who aborted that second SM-2 launch and saved an FA-18. They're the crane operators conducting missile transfers in 20-foot seas at midnight. American military dominance doesn't come from the defense budget. It comes from 19-year-olds who can reload a vertical launch system in heavy seas, who can track 40 targets simultaneously, who can stay alert during their 6th consecutive 16-hour watch. The cruisers are just the platform. The real capability is the crew. So when you hear about obsolete Ticonderoga-class cruisers, remember December 22nd, 2024. Remember 28 hostile missiles. Remember 26 intercepts in 18 minutes. Remember the trade-off. We don't need to invade your country. We can end your government from 200 miles offshore using a ship built before the internet existed. That's not a threat. That's a physics demonstration. If this breakdown of magazine depth, operational tempo, and the geometry of modern naval warfare changed how you think about sea power, hit that like button. Sleep well. The math has been done. The watch is set.